Hello world, this is H.L. Quist. I am the Mythbuster. Haven't talked to you for a while, but I think this topic is of extreme importance, and I hope that out of all this chaos that we can find some hope. Where is the hope for America? You know, I was interviewed on a radio station, it was a bedroom community, to Madison, Wisconsin a couple weeks ago. In the belly of the beast. And my interviewer, the host, Scott Peterson, he's interviewed me probably 10 times, 12 times in the last year or so. And he asked me, he said, you know, all this chaos is going on around us, and give us some perspective of what do you think is happening that's creating all this? And I said, well, Scott, you know, what I see is that we're seeing a breakdown in America's infrastructure. Social, political, and economic. And we're seeing a confluence of all of this coming together at the same time. You know, and the thing that's really undermining it is we're undermining the rule of law, which has made America great and made it good. Now, for example, take something as simple as people objecting to the use of robocops for speeding. You're infringing on my rights, and this is illegal, and challenging it in the courts. You know, well, I don't care if somebody drives 100 miles an hour and gets a speeding ticket, but they endanger all the people around them. That's the problem. And on a macro basis, you know, looking at it on a high-end basis, is undermining the rule of law of the country, the Constitution. Or what they're doing in Wisconsin is they want to revoke the laws. They want to mold the law to fit their needs. And I told Scott, I said, you know, these folks up there in Madison, you know, they could win the battle and lose the war. Yeah, because if they win, then there's massive layoffs coming. There's, you know, cutting back on the budget, and they lose their job, they lose their entitlements. Hasn't anybody figured this out yet? You know, but anyway, let's look at the megatrend. Let's look at the big picture. I see the end of our Western-centric civilization, and our fiat money system is what's happening. I call it the end of America as we knew it, is actually the big picture. And, you know, there's a shift in the power from Europe to the U.S., now to China. All the power, the political, the economic power. You know, the Chinese have thought for years that we don't have to invade the United States of America. America is going to destroy itself. They're right. That's exactly what's happening. You know, in 2009, I wrote a book called How to Profit from the Coming Inflationary Boom and Avoid the Next Crash. July 2009. People thought I was crazy. We were meshed in deflation and deleveraging, and the economy was stagnant, not going anywhere. How could somebody come forward and say there's going to be inflation? But that's exactly what's happened. Here we are today, less than 2 years. People who read my book and took my recommendations profited from that inflationary boom. Look at the stock market from mid-2009 to today. It's recaptured 100% of what it lost. Look at the commodities. Look at gold. Look at precious metal. Look at oil. Look at all of the commodities. Look at food products. Look at the commodity boom that we've enjoyed and profited from it if you were in the right investment, obviously. Now, what I've done is that I've always said that there's, you know, really 3 types of inflation. Asset inflation, which we just discussed. There's price inflation, which is now hitting us. I said on YouTube, and I said in all my writings, 6 months ago, the first quarter of 2011, food prices would skyrocket. That's exactly what's happened. You know, and it was so easy to predict this, to forecast this. Now, wage inflation, we may never have wage inflation, but it's not necessary. You know, the economists told me, he said, Buster, you can't have inflation when there's 12% or 13% unemployment. and there's no velocity of money in the economy. But here we are. We've got it, even with high unemployment. And it will get worse. I think the inflation could morph into hyperinflation. You know, this whole strategy was designed by the Federal Reserve, by Ben Bernanke. He just took the cue from, that's what Greenspan did in 2002. How to inflate the economy, how to get people to spend money. Asset inflation. Drive people out of the safety of bonds and the low yield into more risk assets. That causes inflation. That causes asset inflation. That's where we are today. You know, in December of 2010, Bernanke said in a interview with on one of the major networks, he said, "I can guarantee you the Fed can control inflation." That's quite a statement. It's also disingenuous at best and a lie at worst. And it will go down in history as memorable as that one where President Bill Clinton looked in the camera and he said, "I did not have sex with that woman." Yes, it is absurd, but that's our leadership or our lack of leadership. And all it boils down to is this whole strategy of asset inflation is a short-term fix which sets us up for a longer-term problem. And that's where the crash comes in this time. All right? Now, there's a confluence of events. It's not only domestic here in our money printing in QE2, 3, 4, whatever. It's what's going on in the Mideast. Now, the Mideast situation is going to get worse. How could it, I mean, revolutions, you know, the American Revolution was probably one of the only successful revolutions. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, you know, the people did away with the existing totalitarian or the despots or the kings or whatever, and replaced it was worse. That's what will happen probably in the Mideast. Armageddon will be the Middle East. And, you know, we had the opportunity to become energy independent 30 years ago. We had the opportunity to prevent Social Security from becoming a huge problem, which we're now faced with, Medicare, Medicaid. But our leadership did nothing about it. It's the absence of leadership. And that's, well, you can't unring the bell, but that's where we are today, and that's why we are today. And I'm always asked about, you know, what are the forces behind this? Is there some evil source? What is it? Is it the progressives? Is it the liberals? Is it the socialists, the Marxists? What is behind it? Well, there is one man that is one of the focal points, and he wants this chaos. He wants to undermine America. He wants capitalism to end. He wants to do away with the U.S. Constitution. He says so right on his website. That man is George Soros, wealthy individual, and what he wants to do is profit from the chaos that he's helped create. There are a lot of other people involved, obviously, but he is a key man. Now, he's an immigrant. He came to the United States a number of years ago from Hungary, and he, after he went through his education, raised his right hand, I'm sure he did, and said, "I pledge allegiance to the United States of America." He didn't pledge allegiance to the United States of America. He wants to destroy it. This is a treasonous act. He should be, on a minimum basis, deported. Look him up. Look at his website. Search and find out all about this man. He is destroying the American way of life, and he's enjoying every minute of it in his executive suite as he watched the turmoil on TV. So where is the hope? It's found in a strange place. You remember historically, you go back to the 20s, the roaring 20s, a lot of the same things were happening. You had all kinds of wild things happening in our society, and the bankers and the banksters and the masters of the universe were doing the same things that they were doing in 2006 and 2007. But it came to a crashing halt. But out of the ashes of the 30s, of course, arose a stronger America. That's what I see happening. That's where the hope. America needs a catharsis, a cleansing of the debt. It's the debt bubble that's going to burst. That's where the crash is. We're up against the wall. There's trillions of dollars of student debt. There's almost $1 trillion of student debt. $1 trillion of consumer debt. Credit cards, automobile loans, what have you. And not to mention the trillions of dollars of mortgage loans. Most of this will not ever be repaid. The Mythbuster makes that bold statement here today. We need this catharsis, and we need to restart America. The real America will surface or resurface again. This boom, in my opinion, this current boom, inflation boom, is the last rodeo. Ben Bernanke has orchestrated this. In fact, you know, every rodeo has a clown. Ben Bernanke will end up being the clown and probably get gored. He'll lose his job, and rightfully so. Where do we go from here? Well, the only thing we can do is to protect ourselves, try to change things, try and change the direction of the country, but make certain that we've taken care of our family, our friends, our business associates the best we can. There is money to be made in an inflationary boom that we're experiencing, which that's what I've been talking about. But there's also a time to get the hell out of Dodge, and that day is coming also. The hope is this. Remember, in 1998, Russia failed. The country would completely collapsed, politically, socially, economically. They've now recovered. The ruble is one of the strongest currencies in the world, and Russia will emerge even stronger. Argentina, 2001. They had inflation, morphed into hyperinflation. The economy collapsed. They defaulted on all their sovereign debt. They told the banks they weren't going to pay them anything. Now, Argentina's recovered, although they're faced with another inflationary cycle. And how about Iceland? Iceland. 300,000 folks in Iceland. But their banksters got involved in subprime debt. They brought the entire economy down. Collapsed. Completely. A crack-up boom. Another crack-up boom. Today, Iceland is recovering. And here's the good news. Iceland is prosecuting all the banksters personally for bringing the country to its knees. That's what needs to happen here. Those of you who have seen Inside Job, that's what needs to happen. Until there's personal liability and you put it on the line, these guys will continue, these masters of the universe will continue doing it to us again. Is there hope? Yes, I believe there's hope. You know, I was born right in the middle of the Depression and enjoyed growing up in the golden years of the 40s and the 50s. That's why it hurts me and pains me to look and see what's going to happen to my beloved America. But this is the time to act. I hope this gives you hope. The catharsis is necessary to cleanse this country. This is the Mythbuster. I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.